Hello, I'm Scott Soshnick.
And I'm Eben Novi-Williams, and this is the DeChambeau Knows Golf Sports Business Podcast,
Oh,
the
I
Sporticast.
mean, he already knew golf. We knew that. It's not like he hadn't won one. It's not his first U.S. Open. It's his second U.S. Open, but I like the creativity. It's still like the NWSL. You're trying to go back to your glory days and punctuate that last syllable. Nice try. Why don't you tell the world what you did over the weekend, by the way? This deserves a mention on the Sporticast.
Yeah.
You're limping around the office.
I ran an ultra marathon down in Greenville, South Carolina on Saturday.
Where it's notoriously cool this time of year.
Yeah, for some reason, had not factored in the idea that it was probably going to be extremely humid and disgustingly hot in middle of June in the middle of South Carolina. But had a blast. Did pretty well. I finished in, I think, 6th overall.
Well, how far? You say ultra. Explain how quickly. How did it work?
This one was one of these races where it's a 2-mile loop in a field, and you have 1 minute fewer to complete each successive lap. So everybody loses. It's just essentially a matter of how long it takes you to lose.
But there's two strategies to it, right? Go really fast or just time yourself.
Yeah,
you
essentially have to balance, do you want to go quickly or even moderately fast at the beginning and get a lot of rest, or do you want to just walk as much as possible and conserve your energy? I chose the second approach, walked literally as much as possible. There was one lap where my stomach was acting up and I decided to do it pretty quickly to give myself a little bit more time at the end. But for the most part, my strategy was to conserve energy as much as possible. And I did pretty well. I did 56 miles. I think I'm only going to get credit for 54 of them because that last lap, again, I failed to finish in time, but legs hurt today, but certainly glad I did it. That's for sure.
All right. See, what's hurting for Rory McIlroy today is the pride.
Worst weekend
is
for him,
the putter, is the, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but again, you can watch a whole tournament just by catching the highlights on Sunday. This is the way I'm going to consume sports from now on. That is me. I am not investing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in a golf tournament. It's just not going to happen. Sunday, beautiful day, Father's Day. Mm-hmm. Do fathers get to say, because they probably do it anyway, do they go the excuse, I just want to be left alone to watch the final round? Is that what happened?
Millions of fathers yesterday.
Well,
for
call me
whom
crazy.
The thing they wanted was to be able to sit there and watch the final round of the U.S. Open.
Far be it for me to criticize, but I was out. We had a catch on the front lawn. We were out a bike ride. We were out there doing stuff. I'm not sitting in front of the TV watching this stuff. Sorry. Followed it on Twitter. But as we talked about, Bryson DeChambeau wins the U.S. Open. Rory missed a 2.5, 3-footer. Right?
Two
on
of them,
18.
I think one on 15 or 16 and then another one on 18. Yeah.
Now, you and I, we sometimes start conversations in the office and then we're like, whoa, we're not going to have, let's not do this now because then it'll feel fake. So we have not had this. But I turned to you and I said, what is all this gushing over DeChambeau staying at the course and signing autographs and, I'm like, this is PR 101. The guy's reputation wasn't great. He's done a 180. And this is so simple. How much are they paying somebody to tell him, or maybe he just wanted to do it, but this is how little do you have to do to be considered a good person in sports these days? This drives me crazy. Great from a business standpoint for him if he's rehabilitated the image, and that's great. But I decided I want to be a nice guy. Wow. And what a great piece of content that the dude from the golf channels there, or was it NBC, whoever it was, he's trying to mimic the shot out of the sand, and DeChambeau comes and he says, oh, let's do it again. This is not hard. My Lord, stop with the gushing praise for the guy. Just stop. He didn't do anything. He hung around. What else are you doing? It was what is the big deal? You had a great moment. You just won the tournament, right? Hang around with the fans and have a wonderful time. Boy, what a great dude. That's hard to do. Come on, enough already. This drives me crazy.
I agree with everything you said. I think it just shows you just how much a lot of golfers don't do that, right? The fact that this guy, when he won a U.S. Open, stuck around for a while, did TV interviews, signed autographs, seemed to want to.
Oh, but Eben, he stayed so late; it was dark, and they had to light the signatures with the cell phones. Ooh,
yeah. So I agree with you. I think that this says a lot about other golfers, and maybe not as much about him. And I don't think we should be heaping all this praise onto him here. I do think, just taking a step back, you mentioned the 180 of the way golf fans and the sport seems to treat him. I think this is remarkable. A couple years ago, he was the brash, cocky, guy who said that Augusta was a par 67 for him and was playing really slowly, and a lot of players seemed to hate him. Fans didn't seem to like him either. And then the highlights I've seen of the round on Sunday, huge support. People were USA chants everywhere. People were clearly behind him, the treatment he's getting after winning. And in the middle of all that, Scott, he signed with Liv. He did the thing that you think so many golf fans, so many purist
he did the
golf
thing
fans
Rory wishes he would have done.
despise in some ways, or think they might despise. The fact that Bryson and that dumb feud he had with Brooks Koepka, everything about Bryson felt overdone, manufactured, and fake 4 or 5 years ago. He's managed to turn that all around, and in the middle of that, doing the thing that it seemed like so many golf fans were going to criticize him for. I think it's remarkable. I don't know. I don't know enough about golf to know exactly how it happened, how natural, organic it was, or how much of this was planned in some ways. But yeah, to see him getting all this support against a guy like Rory, who you think of as the kind of ideal for golf fans, of standing up against Liv and having all this adversity and trying to get back to a major championship after like a decade of not having one. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting, and I think there's a bigger story here about Bryson and his image in the golf world that I think is worth unpacking.
Greatest transition segue in the history of the Sporticast about to take place. What you're telling me is Bryson DeChambeau's image is moving in
one direction.
Take it away, Novi Williams. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Sticking in the golf world.
I said Niall Horan. Let me do it first. Niall Horan. Sorry, guys.
One Direction star, Niall Horan.
I didn't know this guy, by the way. You did.
I barely knew him. I obviously know One Direction and
well, I know One Direction. I've heard of One Direction. I'm not that old and out of touch.
Has splintered, and now these guys are all going off.
But you were asking one of our colleagues in the office, and I love that you can join this group, younger colleagues in the office.
Like, thank you.
Yeah, where does Niall rank in sort of the popularity of the One Direction band? And I don't know how many are there. How many people comprise One Direction?
Okay. I'm not sure,
but you were like you put him at third.
Yeah.
And you have been informed by this younger, more in the know person, cooler, hipper, zeitgeister, that he's up to number 2.
Do you know who the number 1 is?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. So Harry Styles is the clear.
I didn't know Harry Styles was a One Direction person, but at least I know that name.
Multi-dimensional star now, music, TV, all.
And maybe a little unfair, but this zeitgeister, younger, more in the know person, I believe, if I turn around quickly here, has a picture of Harry Styles on her desk.
There you go.
If I'm not mistaken.
So number 1, Harry Styles. Zayn Malik, I think is his last name, was for a while, I think, the second most famous and most popular.
Oh, can I ask you a question, by the way, before we continue on this? And sure. I don't know if dollars were spent on this marketing campaign, but the movie with what's her name? Where she's like the older woman and she's dating the pop star,
Anne Hathaway.
The Anne Hathaway movie, whatever this thing is called.
Yeah.
This is not like something that would be targeted to me. I cannot escape clips of this movie. They are like, everywhere I turn on all of my, whatever I'm doing, somehow, some way, clips of this movie are in front of my face. Have you seen that at all?
I have not seen that. Yeah.
Oh,
that
all
must
right.
be some kind of cookie following you around for some part of your internet habit that they think overlaps with.
Oh my Lord. Maybe my wife took my phone for a while and was like doing some Googling or something. I don't know.
She's another one, by the way, Anne Hathaway, that was on the Bryson trajectory 5 years ago, or more than that. But a lot of people in that world did not like her.
Really?
And I don't think, have you heard of Hathaway-hate?
I have not.
Hathaway. That was like
I thought after Devil Wears Prada, she'd be like this big star.
Yeah, after Devil Wears Prada about a decade ago. And I'm not sure if she is fully outstripped.
That brings me to Anna Wintour, which brings me to Roger Federer, which brings me down the line. But we'll go back to Niall Horan, number 2 in fan favorite in One Direction.
Niall is investing in the Boston Commons Golf Club. That is the franchise TGL, the Boston franchise TGL, Rory's.
It's funny. You don't want to back out of a planned announcement. For people who don't know, there's a lot of planning that goes into these really, especially when you're dealing with somebody like, Rory and Fenway Sports Group and Niall and when's the best time. but it seemed as if you have that moment where Rory realized, all right, I'm not winning this tournament when DeChambeau, whatever, and he's standing there against the table. This announcement was like scheduled for 15 minutes after that, or 10, 15 minutes.
Could have been the
That
perfect
could not.
thing, and
Yeah, and he had already thrown out the first pitch at Fenway Park before the Yankees game. So it's like this thing was calculated. It was down. They were not about to alter it. But man, it would have been interesting to somebody say, abort, abort. This is not the time to be, putting Rory out there with his TGL investment.
I'm really curious when TGL launches scheduled for early in 2025, 1 year later than originally planned. They were supposed to launch this January. There was a storm down in Florida, damaged their facility. They decided to push it a year. I'm sure that was not a good result for them, but a part of me does feel like, and I'd love to ask Mike McCarley this, if waiting a year was actually maybe better.
Infrastructure,
more build up. You hopefully maybe get some clarity on the live PGA situation by January 2025 that you certainly would not have had in January 2024. And the model is this thing we're seeing in all these sports now, right? We talked the other day about 3-on-3 women's basketball league. Taking the stars, a more concentrated version, maybe a more fan-friendly, more social media-friendly version of the sport,
made for streaming,
spinning it off, playing it at a time when the PGA or the WNBA is not playing. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. We're seeing a lot of it already. We're going to see more, and I'm very curious to see if the new flashy presentation, the TGL is. Half of it is AR golf, essentially. They're going to be driving the ball and long irons hit into a massive projector screen. And then for short chips and putting, they'll be actually on a physical green in the place.
That changes in undulation, that changes hold.
Totally, yeah. So there's a lot of cool tech involved. There's a lot of, going back to the golf purists for a second, I think there's a lot of them that are going to think this is a bastardization and they never want to watch it. But you're also probably going to get a lot of new fans in who don't want to, as you said, watch hours of golf for 4 straight days to figure out who's going to win the Masters or the US Open, but are willing to tune in for 2.5 hours on a Monday night to watch golfers mic'd up in this cool new environment. So I'm very curious to see kind of where golf fans net out on this. And then from a player standpoint, all the players who are involved have an 18% of the league from an equity standpoint. There is economic involvement from players in a way that doesn't exist in a league like the PGA. Cutting players in, having them be equity partners is again another strategy we're going to see more and more of. So I'm fascinated by TGL. I think they were maybe a little ahead of their time, and now maybe the time is exactly right. We'll see come early next year. But they've got a very impressive list of investors and backers, not just in TGL proper, but in individual franchises like we're talking about here in Boston.
Yeah, help me out here. What do you think? Focus group of one. If I tell him, do you want to watch this? I don't see it for him.
He doesn't watch golf at all, correct?
He doesn't watch golf, no. But he does go to the driving range. He has shown an interest in playing, but there is zero chance of him sitting down on a Sunday, forget about a Thursday and a Friday, to watch a golf tournament.
So he's a perfect.
He should,
on a Monday night in February. Yeah, I think you should tell him, hey, you have to watch 15 minutes of this and just see if he's like,
let me know. Does this stick? Are your friends talking about? Yeah, this is just, are your friends talking about? All I have to do is look at his Snapchat feed. That's it. I find out his entire universe on the Snapchat feed.
And this league 100% will get a very big buzz media attention for week 1 and week 2 and week 3 because it's new. It's a cool presentation, all of that stuff. The big question obviously will be at the end of season 1, what it looks like. But we've had Mike on the show, I think, and if not, we'll probably do that before this thing kicks off. But I'm very intrigued to see what this looks like.
Did you watch any of the Angel Reese Caitlin Clark game?
I saw the one highlight that everybody showed. I saw the hard foul.
You saw the hard foul?
Yeah, okay. That's it.
And the ridiculous, just absolute overdone conversation that took place around it afterward.
That I saw on social media.
You can't escape that. And then they play again, right? Don't they play again coming up?
They might. Yeah. The whole Caitlin Clark conversation is just like many things in culture nowadays has just been co-opted into something that is not actually about the thing that they're talking about anymore anyway. And I think that's silly and sad. And I can understand the frustration that actual WNBA fans have about the way that this sport is being discussed in media circles that never would have discussed it in the past, because again, they're having a conversation that's not the actual basketball conversation.
Well, far be it from me, and this is part of the problem in that we are mixing the politics and the sports.
Yeah.
But I feel there is sort of kinship here for poor Chuck Schumer. Like, when we talk about Bryson being his authentic self.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure where to go with this one. If people haven't seen, I know this is not sports related, but again, I'm dovetailing with Bryson and Caitlin Clark and the sort of like, you can't get away from either one. So Chuck the senator, puts a picture of himself grilling on social media and says, "Oh, we've always lived in apartments, so obviously there's no grilling in the apartments. But my daughter and her husband bought a house and they have a backyard, so here we are grilling." And like, and it's really funny actually. There's some hot dogs to the left of the grill, which look great, by the way. It looked like they have a nice snap. They did it really well. Have the grill marks, but then he's got like 6 hamburger patties down and a piece of cheese on one of them. And they're raw patties. He had literally just taken it out. Yeah, he had just taken it out of the package and put it. I mean, he got grilled. He got roasted for this thing. And I mean, I think he took it down, which I don't just laugh. Yeah, I think he took it down. And just like, can't you just laugh and be like I said, I don't grill. I'm not good at this. I wanted to try it. Oops. I don't know.
This reminded me of a couple years ago, Kirk Cousins, when he was the quarterback for the Vikings.
Yeah.
Same thing. Put out a photo of him grilling on like July 4th or Father's Day or something like that. And people zoomed in on the grill, and we think they were burgers, but they were a weird color and they were in a weird shape. And people like actually couldn't figure out what kind of meat it was. Like, is it liver? Is it ground beef? Is it steak? Like, he got grilled also, to use your pun. He got absolutely cooked online for his bad. I'm sure people have compared the two, the Schumer and the Kirk Cousins at this point, but it did make me realize that Schumer is not the first public celebrity to get chastised for his grilling photo.
Oops. Well, the Dallas Mavericks and the Edmonton Oilers were in the heat.
On the hot seat, yeah.
But yeah, well, Disney was really in the heat because they're broadcasting both the NBA and NHL championship series, best of 7, and both were 3-0. The worst thing, and we've discussed this many, many times, people always think, oh, the big market team, right? Oh, the league wants and the network wants New York. They want LA. They want Chicago. Well, I'm not going to deny the bigger markets and the big star-driven teams. Yes, that is a good thing. That is a good thing, no doubt about it. However, as we have discussed on this show, more important than who is in the championship series or any playoff series is how far that series goes. It's the number of games, not the participants. Network executives want game 7s. They will take, give me two of the smallest market teams out there. They'll take, Tampa against, give me a small Calgary, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. They'll take, or even Edmonton. They will take that over LA, New York sweep. Give me game 7 over a sweep, no matter who those teams are any day. So they were facing the prospect of double sweeps, which is hundreds of millions of dollars of lost revenue for Disney. So each one, Edmonton won 8-1. That would Chase Bobrovsky, great. The Dallas Mavericks won. We're 3-1 on both. Championship game number 5 tonight in the NBA. Boston going for its 18th championship. And there's a little known thing there with the ownership group. If you want to tell our listeners, that is a perfect sports business anecdote.
Yeah, I think you should do it because I'm going to get the numbers wrong. But when
before they bought, so the group led by Wick Grossbeck, Z Pagliuca, they bought the franchise when there were 16 championships. So they named that, literally the name of their ownership group that is on the documentation is Banner 17. That's the name of it. And people were like, "Oh, you're guaranteeing they're going to win?" And he was like, "No, but we're gonna do it, or we're gonna die trying to get banner number 17 up there." Of course, they subsequently have won banner 17, and he's not changing it. He's not going to be banner 18 now because he thinks banner 17 brought him luck. So they're going to stick with that. The ownership group is banner 17, and there's a good chance after tonight that they could be an 18-time world champion.
Love it. Going back to the ads for a second, we always say show don't tell is always better. Our colleague Anthony Krupe broke down the numbers here.
Yeah, good showing.
In a really good example, and I wrote them down, so I'll give people an understanding of what we're talking about here. On the NBA side for Disney, they sold $120 million worth of ads for the first 4 games. So if the series goes 4 games, boom, you walk away with $120 million worth of ads. What's left in the final 3 games is another 145 million. So more than half of the ads sales that happen in an NBA finals are happening for the final 3 games, which are not guaranteed, versus the first 4, which are.
And you could probably juice a little bit more. If you got a game 7, you could probably juice a little more.
You can probably juice it. So to get even more granular, so again, $120 million sold through the first 4. If you get the 5th game, it goes up to 155 million. 6th game, 200 million. 7th game, 265 million. So that is what is at stake. For each game that the Mavericks win from here on out, you're looking at those incremental jumps for Disney and the NBA. And then on the NHL side, Scott, the economics are actually quite different. Not only are they significantly smaller, again, NBA 4 games, $120 million worth of ad sales, NHL 4 games, $12 million worth of ad sales. So literally a tenth of the amount on the NBA side. But if I'm reading Anthony's numbers correctly, the first 4 games of the NHL playoffs are actually worth more than the final 3. It's $12 million for the first 4. It goes up to $20 million total if they get a 7-game series. So unlike the NHL, where the first 4 games are more valuable from an ad sales standpoint, the NBA is the opposite. And you're right. It's $145 million on the line if this had been a sweep versus a 7-game series. And most likely, we're recording this obviously before the Monday night game where the Celtics are favored to close this out, but more than likely they're going to end up somewhere in the middle there.
Well, and for some reason, there's no make goods for the NHL either. Anthony pointed that out. There would be no make goods for any shortfall on the
different
NHL.
Economies.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, what'd you think of Tom Brady's debut, by the way? I know you were anticipating seeing him behind the microphone or in front of the microphone. He did the UFL championship on Fox, another way to promote that he will be the number 1 analyst on Fox Sports for the NFL this coming season. How'd you think TB12 did?
I'll be honest, I didn't watch the UFL game.
You don't have to watch, but you caught it on social. You caught the highlight.
Clips.
That is the ecosystem we live in. Nobody sees it live anymore. It's except for the game itself. If you want the game, you got to get it live. I get it. Yeah. But everything now is about. I always go back to the best example of how we live are Saturday Night Live jokes. Yeah. I'm not seeing any Saturday Night Live joke, no pun intended, live. I'm seeing it the day after, whatever. How do you get people the week before, the week after? That's the ecosystem in which we're headed.
So with that caveat that I obviously didn't watch the game, the clips I saw online that were getting a lot of praise. He was getting a lot of praise. I actually thought were kind of underwhelming. And maybe people's expectation is very low, but I always assumed that Tom was going to be comfortable, charismatic. Those things clear speaking, those things I was not worried about. I think the question is the substance of his coverage. And it's a UFL game, so who knows? But yeah, I think there's still a lot out on that. My big question around Tom is, if you've listened to him talk about football since he retired, he is extremely critical about the way the game is taught, the way the game is played, the way the rules have changed, sloppiness, lack of focus, bad tackling. I am very curious to see how critical he is going to be, because I do think deep down in his head and in his heart, there's going to be a lot of things critical that he's going to want to say. I don't think the full unfiltered Tom is exactly what Fox wants. I think they probably want something in the middle. And we'll see. There's criticism of Wayne Gretzky, right? That he doesn't really want to be critical of, and I haven't listened to too much of his coverage on TNT for hockey, but that he doesn't really want to be critical of players. And then you have guys like Shaq and Chuck who have been quite critical, and people love it or people hate it depending on where you are. Yeah, I think the big question, at least in my mind, for Tom as he heads on this 10-year, $375 million Fox deal, is how unfiltered and how raw is he going to be, particularly regarding his opinions on the negative side of players, coaching decisions, NFL writ large.
To me, this is about preparation. If Tom Brady prepares to broadcast a game like he prepared to play a game, it's going to be fascinating, because he will see things, he will deliver the insights that will take me behind a curtain I've never been. Even Tony Romo. This is about, how is he going to prepare? Because he does see things. Is he going to sit there and talk to the players? Is he going to watch game film the same way? If so, I really, really want to see it. You mentioned Chuck. Mr. Barkley had a late night announcement on Inside the NBA that next season would be his last. We all know what's going on there. Warner Brothers Discovery fighting to hold on to at least any sliver of the NBA contract. It'd be very interesting to see if it happens. I doubt it. ESPN, NBC, Amazon, ready to take over for the new deal. Chuck, of course, that Inside the NBA is a beloved show.
Yep.
And there was a lot of question of like, what happens to the show if TNT loses the NBA, and can they go somewhere else? And Chuck is a free agent. But he decided after, by the way, it's so weird. He made an appearance on ESPN's hockey telecast to say I'm a free agent. He did a car wash, a personal free agency car wash, and only to come out and say, you know what, after that, I'm done. Do you believe it? Do you believe he's done?
I maybe believe that he's done with TV. I don't think he's done with media. And I actually think that if you listen to what he said, I think he's threading that needle quite carefully, right? I think the direct quote he said multiple times is, I won't appear on any other networks.
Yes.
Which I think is a big deal.
Start his own production company, right?
Yeah. I think it's a big deal because if NBC had gotten these rights and Warner Brothers ends up not getting any, and we'll see if that ends up being true, but Chuck would have been a very valuable asset. I think he could have gotten paid a lot of money starting after next season to do what he's doing now on a different network. So him taking himself out of that equation is news in the industry. But yeah, I think that, as you said, production company, podcast, do his own thing. There's a lot of ways in which Chuck can stay influential and do a lot of the things he wants to do without appearing on another network. And that gets easier and easier every year with the way that media is created and the way that it's consumed and the way you can go direct to people. So yeah, I would be surprised if we saw no more Chuck after next basketball season at all in the media world. My guess is we end up with something closer to what Stephen A. Smith has, which is a very big popular personality, kind of striking out on his own, maybe having some partnership going back to a network of some sort, but
an O&O company that he leases to somebody else.
Chuck doesn't need TNT anymore. He doesn't need ESPN or NBC either. I don't know. That's my thinking, is that there's a big difference between retiring from being on other networks and retiring from media. And my guess is he's doing the former and not the latter.
We can promise we are not ready to yet retire. There will be many more. What number is this, by the way, to keep track? What number Sporticast is this?
Sporticast 354, I believe. Maybe 356. It's one of those.
When's the next cake with candles? When? 400? 500? When's the next cake with candles?
Oh my gosh.
And who are we bringing on our 500th episode?
The 500th episode, I think, is a big one.
500?
Yeah.
All right.
500. I think we bring Michael Barr on.
Oh, God almighty. Then we got to talk about lions and tigers. No, too much Detroit. Yeah, all right, close it out, my friend.
Bloomberg show. He is Scott Soshnick. You can find him on Twitter at Soshnick. You can find me on Twitter at Novi_Williams. The show is produced by Aaron Greenewald. Thank you very much to Aaron. Sportico's digital media editor, Cora Veltman, would like you to know that you can follow the show at Sporticast, which is the hub of the Sportico Media Network.